Good day, citizens. Citizen of the future here. I hope everyone's doing well. Today, this video I created, it's a bit of a longer one again, but I've done about 30 hours of research into this global supply chain. And what I created this for is to show you guys the problems, where the friction is, what is going on with the global supply chain and how broken and fragmented it is. Then I'm going to get into the trade finance gap. I'm going to talk about problems with paper in the supply chain and how paper slows everything down, how truly expensive it is. And as I'm showing you these problems, I'm also going to read like a university thesis on the fragmented supply chain. And I'm going to show you solutions that I have found that these huge corporations around the world are starting to implement as standards. And these standards are going to revolutionize the supply chain around the world. So, first of all, if you don't like regulated documents and you find it boring, and then turn around right now, because this is straight up facts and my thesis on how the supply chain is being revolutionized. And I talk about Internet of Things sensors, devices, how automation is going to be through warehouses, and basically technologies that are at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution. And that is what I'm going to dive into today. So before we get started here, I'm just going to read a disclaimer. None of this is financial advice. I'm not paid to create any of this, but the reason I create my content on the blockchain revolution is because I see a lack of good factual information out there around these utility blockchain networks. And now I'm not talking about shit coins, meme coins, or these hype YouTubers that are dressing up and doing these funny thumbnails and screaming XRP is going to hit 589. No, I am based off regulated research, and that is what my content is. Now, before we get into this, I want to put you in a mind frame that you can understand the bigger picture of what I'm about to talk about. So this is you. You are sitting in front of your screen and you're watching this video right now. So zoom out from your life, or from where you are right now, and you're in a building. Now, zoom out again. If you went higher to look below and you're sitting in front of this computer, you're outside your body, you're looking down on you. Your building is in a town. Okay, now zoom out again. Now you're looking at your town is in a state, which is in a country. So now zoom out again. And now you're looking at whether you're in North America, whether you're in Singapore, you're looking at your whole country as a whole. Now I want you to zoom out one last time, and this is what you're going to see. And this is the problem I'm about to talk about. We're talking about the global supply chain and trade finance industry as a whole. This is how big I'm talking about. I'm not talking about it's relevant to you and your little town. This is about the globalized shipping and trade finance industry. So you have to really take a big step back to see how big of a problem paper and trade finance is for the globe. So let's move on. So here's an example of mainstream news talking about the record backlogs of cargo ships at California ports. So the US, if you guys didn't know, their ports are very out of date. They don't use any industrial automation, and it's causing all this backlog to hurt retail users and people a part of the industry, because prices of everything is going up because of this backlog. So I wanted to show you guys a video just to give you some perspective of what they're looking at and how much volume of goods actually come through ports and the supply chain.
We had an historic record. We have never seen anything like this before. It's unprecedented.
So a fun fact, they say, I read it in a document, they say these ships usually they're sitting there for 2 2 weeks to a month, and the crews have to stay on board while they wait for this cargo, and they're anchored there to get in line. They're in line to get unloaded at these ports. So that is what is causing a bunch of this delay. And now remember, as I replay this, all these containers, they all have paper documents that have to be checked and gone through. It's all paper.
Whenever you see container ships anchoring out in the bay, know that that's unusual. We're not only seeing a big import surge, this demand for goods is happening around the world. So we're exporting quite a bit of cargo as well.
So that gives you a look at how much cargo and how much stuff that they're dealing with in these ships and ports, how much paper, how much inefficiencies there are that need to be solved. And now I'm going to go more into the problems, and then I'm going to show you guys parts of the solutions in the next phase of this video. But let's continue. So now one of the main problems that I've talked about before in some of the other ones, so I'm just going to go over it quick in here, is paper in cross-border trade costs about 20% of all shipping costs. It's very ineffective. So paper, you got to think it's got to travel through hundreds of different ports, different carriers, and when it's in paper, it gets damaged, it gets lost. All these ports are like interoperable systems. They don't work together very well because there's no digitalization. It's all paper, it takes a lot of time, manual handling, vulnerable to fraud. And like, just look at this example. You got an exporter, you got all these port authorities that it has to travel through when it's going from China to the States. And that's a lot of changing hands, and that's a lot of time trying to verify paper. So here's an example of what it is like using traditional paper with the bill and lading flow. It could take up to 5 to 10 business days to settle a paper transaction. Then they have to store the paper. It's a huge process, pain in the ass. But now when you start bringing blockchain into the industry, that is storing files on chain. So now you eliminate paper. It eliminates having to move paper between hands, between all these people. And here's an example: paper documents you gotta transport, you gotta store in a vault, and you gotta verify that it hasn't been messed with and it's proper. And then you got a blockchain-based asset where it's tracked, so the DDoc can be verified, time-stamped. Anytime there's a change made, anytime there's another signature, it's all added to the blockchain. And that is through, this is an example of XDC network in the DNI initiative. Another problem, so this is minimal, but paper costs for the supply chain are upwards of $3 billion every year, not counting the additional price tag of paper, ink, and printing. Paper results in a lack of visibility, efficiency, and sustainability. So that's huge, because if you think about all these shipments, the visibility isn't there. So you can't see where a shipment is in live form. But if everything was digitalized, you'd be able to track where your shipment was, what port it was in. Oh, whose hands is it in now? Oh, it's on the truck, or oh, it's still on the boat. But if you digitalized all the paperwork, it's a QR code that's just scanned at every port. So now you're not even changing paper hands, you're scanning a QR code and it checks it in and it moves the paperwork to the next step of the process. So now I'm going to show you, I've showed it in another video, but I'm going to show it again just to give you a quick thing. But when you digitalize what is in the invoices, this is all the data that you can take and turn into big data. So bills of exchange, commercial invoices, order forms, insurance policies, bills of lading numbers, gross weight, vessel numbers, voyage numbers, authorizations, you can have payment confirmations, you have KYC and AML sanctions. So now companies are going to be called or be getting identifiers. So for a company or for a cargo, and it's all see all this data that is now being taken from these invoices can be sifted through using AI, artificial intelligence. So they can pick apart what they want to search for. Oh, you know what? I can keyword search this tracking number. I can keyword search this company number to see what they've been shipping. So digitalization is a must. This is the future. So this is why I'm talking about it, because I want to show you guys what the problem is and how it's being transformed. So as you guys can tell, paper is a nightmare all around the world. Now I want to show you guys about what is called the global trade finance gap and how digitalization can help fix this. So from my understanding, the gap is accessible funding to small medium enterprises from what they need and what the current legacy infrastructure can provide. So let me take you down here back to my mind map here. If you haven't seen it, welcome again. So here's companies around the world. So small medium enterprises, whether it's companies that need $30 million loans, or they need $100 million loans, or they need more than that. But this is their accessible funding. So for example, this is the accessible funding to all companies around the world. It's not very much, because right now, in 2020, there was a $1.7 trillion gap in funding. $1.7 trillion, okay? And that's huge. They say up to 40% right here, which I have. Right. So then if you take another step out, I found this document, doing some more research. This was from the ICC, International Chamber of Commerce, and we know what blockchain solution they use. So the ICC, possible 5 trillion trade finance gap needed to rebound recovery from COVID right here. Given the scale of financing required to support a rapid rebound in global trade flows, potentially as much as 5 trillion is needed. So I want to show you, I'm going to back out here, and then I'm going to show you in my thread that I wrote about how much that money is in time. Because for us as normal people, we can't really see, well, what's $1.7 trillion? It's just got a bunch of zeros. Well, let me show you what it is in time. So when you turn this into time, so 1 trillion seconds of ordinary clock time is equal to 31,546,000 years. Yes. So if you did every second into $1 trillion, you would have 31,546 years. What the hell? That's a lot of money in a perspective of time. So $1.8 trillion of the trade finance gap in 2020 would be 56,782 years. That's of lack of funding to small medium enterprises around the world. So ICC said 5 trillion. $5 trillion in funding, you would have 157,000 years. Wow. And that's lack of funding that businesses need around the world. So what they're doing is they're tokenizing, like XDC network is a tokenized network that can be used to fund small medium enterprises, because at one point in time you're going to be able to stake your XDC to help fund businesses on their ventures. Because what it is companies around the world that aren't close to major banking infrastructure, they need funding. And if you're getting funding through tokenization, that enables a lot more lending. It's not like a traditional finance bank that's has all these high projections that you need to meet. So that's what is revolutionizing the trade finance gap, is tokenization. That's what's huge. So ADB, which is Asian Development Bank, let's see what they had to say here. Digitalization can help close the gap, but global standards and legislation are required to realize this potential with a high cost of technology adoption and lack of expertise should also be addressed. So they need to have a technology neutral platform that's easy to implement, where they don't have to upgrade all their hardwares, etc. and etc. And well, guess who's partnered with ADB? One sec here. I'm just going to pull you up over here. So look at this. Asian Development Bank, blockchain technology for cross-border trade. Asian Development Bank, the ones that wrote this article, International Chambers of Commerce, they know about the $5 trillion trade finance asset gap, and they're working on fixing it through tokenization. Andre Casterman, very smart guy that's working with ITFA, Inigio, and that's what they're talking about, resetting the global economy through tokenization. But that's just my opinion. It's not financial advice. I'll get into these documents next here. So this is just the G7 Ministerial Declaration. Paper-based transactions, which still dominate international trade, are a source of cost, delay, inefficiency, fraud, error, and a big environmental impact. This is a huge thing going across the G7. So this is what I'm talking about, because this is at the forefront of the Industrial Revolution. And then I found this the Standard Chartered Bank document, and it says small medium enterprises can benefit from R3 quarter blockchain, and I put in COF XDC because we know what does who does XDC work with? ESL Bridge with the R3 quarter blockchain. Because you see, and you can see, you've seen my mind map. If you haven't seen this mind map, go to check out the other videos there in the XDC Beginners Dive. So after digging in, I was really digging into problems in ports and the shipping industry. I came across this article. Look, it was wrote, where is it? December 11th, 2021. So this is fresh off the press. Now, I'm about to read what I thought was important. So it took me about an hour and a half to go through, take notes, and I didn't get to listen to it. I had to mentally read and process things in my mind so I can read this to you guys to highlight what the problems are and then compare it to other things that I've seen, and you guys will be able to compare in other videos that I've talked about. Digitalization so let's get started. Digitalizations have an impact on all domains of maritime transport and logistics. Well, what is maritime transport and logistics? I just wanted to look at this to show you guys. So maritime in detail, what do they do? So they're the shipping industry, ports industry, marine industry, and business services industry. So this is huge. We're talking about the big stuff, the big problems. So let's go. Successful digitalization requires focused technology management, ensuring system and data transfer interoperability. This is a key one. Interoperability means these silos need to work with other silos or with other ports. The paper addresses problems, obstacles, and hindrances that ports are currently facing in their digitalization efforts. Interoperability and stakeholder interaction is significant, partly between the port management, municipal ownership, and business operators and vendors. So background of port digitalization. Digitalization is a megatrend that has changed maritime sector significantly. Original reasons for port digitalization are in the traditional efficiency, optimization, and enhancement of material, so cargo flow, because now you can visualize things coming from China to America, etc., etc. As ports evolve from load and offload points to generally intermodal logistical service hubs, the importance of efficient information flows increased. So that's like the information flows is what I was just showing you that the digital documents take. All international key organizations are involved in the digital change. This is huge. For example, International Maritime Organization, IMO, strongly supports the implementation of automated electronic data exchange between ships and from ships to shore to increase efficiency, safety, and security of maritime navigation. So now, since you're digitalizing everything, they're able to interoperate with other machines. So machines and machines are going to start operating together. Digitalization offers significant potentials for ports to improve their efficiency, productivity, security, and sustainability, of course. The transition towards a digital smart port is difficult and complex process. So what is a smart port? Smart port is using sensors, IoT sensors on the cranes, on the cargo pieces. So now you can implement automation into these ports. So now it's cutting back on manual man hours. It's saving time. It's saving money. Digitalization will eventually improve operational efficiency and productivity, increase safety, reduce emissions, and improve sustainability. And so I'm just going to move down here because the rest I didn't find important. Have recognized 3 generations of digital transformation in ports, which are 1, paperless procedures. So for example, referring to XDC, paperless procedures are used through Inizio. Inizio is their DDoC processor. Automated procedures, so that's using the Internet of Things, using AI, using sensors to interoperate automatically, and then smart procedures. Smart procedures is the last step of automating their system, so that's using artificial intelligence solutions that are often referenced as smart procedures. The level of digitalization between ports is varied. In practice, and sadly, in too many port cases, going digital simply means small transitions on the first step. So that's what we're seeing right now in the industry. We have so many fragmented systems that are just starting to digitalize their documents. Example, moving to paperless procedures. If you see in my other videos, I talk about the paperless procedures that are used on XDC and the MLETR standard. These are early steps in digitalization, but too often, particularly small ports, satisfy to stay on the early adoption level. So they're just saying that the small ones that's their first step. So the digital maturity model, DMM, identifying 4 port maturity levels. So 1, they start digitalization of individual parties in the port. 2, integrated systems in the port community, paperless data flows. So now all the papers being gone and done with. Now it's machine-to-machine learning. And then logistics chain integrated with hinterland. I'm not sure what hinterland is, but connected ports in global logistics chain resulting into digitalized port networks. So now we're talking about ports being able to interoperate with other port networks. So that's interoperability. Main technology domains, namely big data, automation, robotics, cybersecurity, IoT and sensor networks, cloud services, and mobile platform applications and social media. So a big one I want to talk about quickly is Constellation Network. You know, they're all about big data, cybersecurity, Internet of Things, sensor networks. So if you don't know about Constellation DAG, it's got no transfer fee. It's got minimal fees. It settles in a couple seconds. And it's working with the federal government, the DoD. They're going to be a big part of these sensor networks. And but that's not what I'm doing this on today, but I just wanted to mention that because I'm going to be producing some videos in the future on DAG. Challenges of digitalization in ports. Incompatible systems. Ports are significant study areas as their large infrastructure machinery investments are designed to last for several decades, whereas IoT and other digital technologies have considered short lifespans. This causes IoT integration into the port infrastructures required to be incremental and changeable. Interconnectivity is the main strength of the IoT technologies as it provides adaptable solutions that may apply AI in order to gain optimal functionality. So digitalization allows smaller ports and logistic companies to connect themselves on digital platforms and to be a first step of the globalized network. They're talking about a globalized network in the supply chain, which is eliminating the silos. Everything's working together. Being a part of a globalized network brings advantages and opportunities, but also puts pressure to initiate price competition between ports. So now you got ports that are going to be competing to lower prices. So this is why the ICC was saying they're revolutionizing the supply chain. IoT development is directly linked to sensor technologies and 5G networks. This makes them traceable and identifiable, enabling remote governing of individual devices and applications. So if you picture a factory now, I'm just going to go back to the mind map here, go back over here, and now I'm going to show you what the smart stuff looks like. Oh, a little bit too far, sorry. Factory of the future. So this is what they're talking about. IoT, factory of the future. So you have predictive machine analytics. You have industrial augmented reality. So is it making it fun for people? I don't know, but IoT sensors for supply chain management. So these sensors in machines will tell if your machine is down, if there's any problems with it. It will relay back to your main hub and tell you how your factory is running and if a technician needs to go out and service it. The computer vision, what else? Blockchain for enterprise resource planning and supply chain management. So these blockchains with these digital documents and that, supply chain management automation. And one day, way in the future, we'll see unmanned trucks and wearables to make sure that trucks aren't going to run over workers. Okay. So as I was just talking about, IoT enabling continuous real-time supply chain visibility. So any shipment, you have that QR code, and that DDoC, that document that's tracking that shipment, is getting moved from each and every step of the way. Real-time location, real-time tracking, and then you know where it is. And this is what I'll get into after, is the solution. But just for a sneak peek, the solution is the ICC is creating a reset to the global economy. And how are they doing that? Digital documents. That's going to create so much automation and speed up time. It's going to be fantastic. International Chamber of Commerce, we're talking about blockchain technology for cross-border trade and who's in there, ITFA, Inigio, and that's all rolls back to XDC. So let's move back on to this regulated document here. IP device connectivity will be an essential driver of change in machine-to-machine communications and ports. IoT solutions also create a market for control applications. Integrative solutions collecting and distributing data is expected to be significant development in the near future. Device costs are decreasing and the physical devices sizes are getting smaller. So now you're getting into chip sizes where they can have something on a conveyor. They can have these small chips. It's not big and expensive like it used to be. Device self-monitoring enables automated maintenance reporting and thus diminishing the role of human factor in operations management. So when you get a factory, a whole factory that's running, you can know if something's failing, if something needs maintenance, if something's overheating, because these sensors can pick up whatever information that you need from that device. And that is the beauties of the Internet of Things. So lack of information sharing, this comes back to paper, leading to operational bottlenecks and reduces efficiency. Here we go. Blockchain technology enables efficient use of decentralized and transparent database solutions. The main benefit is highly reliability, verification of documentation in different phases within the supply chain. This increases traceability of transports and aids the automation processes, example payments via smartphone applications, and societal benefits are evident as the high traceability makes misconduct, a gray economy, more difficult. So they're talking about smartphone applications because now you have a blockchain and now developers can build applications that can implement blockchains into an easy to use app on their phone, which drivers can use, which boat operators can use, which people in the supply chain just can use this app on their phone to scan the document. It comes up just like a QR code and it will prove that things are real. And they say in general, interoperability and trustworthiness are key deciders whether or not blockchain will be extensively adopted in their operations. But guess what? There are blockchain interoperability solutions, whether it's Quant and ODAP, or whether it's XDC and Trade Trust being a part of the MLETR standard, which is right here. I'm going to pull it up right here. So interoperability. What is the interoperability? UNICITRAL model law, so this is the United Nations Commission on International Trade Law. So they produced the MLETR standard, which is model law on transferable electronic records. This is what provides interoperability between these blockchain networks. So you can have XDC network, which is a part of the trade finance tokenization platform, and you can have Trade Trust, which is also the same thing, just for trade finance documents. They're interoperable through that MLETR standard. So we're ahead because this came out a month ago. They're talking about still solving interoperability. We already see how the interoperability is being solved. They talk about right here. It is a paperless single window type system. Incompatible processes were detected and were considered as one of the main hindrances in the technology implementation. So they're talking about the IPCSA. So let me just show you what this single document, or single window document right here. So I watched this really long and boring. So if you think this is long and boring, well, the IPCSA, which is the International Port Community Systems Association, this is where it's interesting. They got 100 views on their YouTube channel, so they're really, really up there. Nobody's interested in this boring stuff. Well, I am, because it all reflects back on this single window type of thing, blockchain. And guess what they say? We are amidst the fourth industrial revolution, and technology is evolving faster than ever. Companies and individuals that don't keep up with some of the major tech trends run the risk of being left behind. Single windows, among others, should prepare and grasp the opportunities allowed by those new trending technologies. Guess what we have? Internet of Things, big data and analytics, AI, blockchain, machine learning. Holy smokes, we are ahead of the game. Okay, citizens of the future, I'm going to continue on because I got to give you this regulated content, or else you won't believe my words if I was just to talk this out. So digitalization requires resources and new perspective on management and warehouses. See, paper documents are not always machine readable. That's the problem. Well, when it's on a blockchain and we have all these data points, it's machine readable. It can sift through all that data. Digitalized ports as logistical hotspots benefit from several positive associations. They improve transport chain transparency and provide more focused centralization for management that should have a positive impact on transport time efficiency. The emergence of blockchain technology improves transfer, reliability, and security of electronic agreements and documents. This again accelerates both financial and material flows and reduces the number of intermediaries in the chain, thus lowers the costs. Well, what do we know? XDC uses Inizio. Inizio is the DDoC that can attach invoices to the blockchain. A fundamental goal of digitalization is to improve cost efficiency, meaning that it should bring about more efficient workflows and productivity, and thus decrease in costs. So smarting the port, digitalization, efficiency, and competitiveness. Ports are platforms, hubs for activities that require stakeholder collaboration. So, like they say, these stakeholders create networks and ecosystems for data sharing. They say ports and logistics companies often do not share any information unless it's obligatory. An important term used in the development reports, practical needs of ports, and is smart terminal. The term smart has been widely used in different contexts, and overall guiding principle of the use of concept is that digital data and information sources are integrated into machine learning or other advanced processes. So they're talking about machines getting smarter. The machines are going to be smarter than half the people pretty soon. So now they talk about cybersecurity threats in ports can include, for example, actions that do harmfully manipulate operational data. A precisely executed cyber attack can gain access to a commander, a ship, access restricted data, and take control of port operations, or simply vandalize the system by changing cargo manifests or container numbers. So, but see, that is solved by using blockchain and using a protected data pipeline for these IoT sensors and devices. And what that is, for example, Constellation DAG, which is another blockchain, which is a blockchain network, or a directed acyclic graph network, which has the ability to protect data pipelines. So it can tell if data has been changed anywhere along the way. I'll get this into another video, but so there is solutions to this cyber security threats that can be protected. And so that is not a problem, in my opinion. So another problem they have is resistance to digital change. Digitalization may also face resistance from different actors and stakeholders. Resistances include negative attitudes toward digitalization, roboticization, and automation. When it comes to automation and robotics, the resistance is often related to extremely high investment costs and the managerial fear of reduction in the need of human workforce, especially in labor unions that play a significant role on these issues. So digitalization, skeptically as they fear, it would lead to a decrease in the need for the workforce. So resistance can also rise from ignorance. Realizing the benefits of the technology generally requires an understanding of the possibilities it has to offer, providing basic knowledge of the fundamentals of these particular technologies. So it might cut down a little bit on the workforce, but it's also going to take off a lot of stress on the workforce. It's going to make, it's going to make you work smarter and not harder. So they say blockchain, IoT, and big data are widely used technical terms. Sometimes the benefits of ports are not immediately apparent due to the numerous ways of using and interpreting them. Terms might mean different things to different people. This can cause a misconception that digitalization merely means that all information can be accessed on a computer or over the internet in a document format. Well, they're saying it's deeper. It's more of like automation of the whole supply chain. It's not just viewing the files in digital document form, but it's automating everything in the industry. Digitalization and the Internet of Everything in the port sector means that the ports are able to acquire, process, and analyze massive volumes of data from different sources. So now picture that data diagram that I showed you a little bit ago. They can take all that information and they can work with it. Internet of Everything. So now it went from the Internet of Things to the IOE. So we're going from technology is going from the Internet of Things to the next generation of the Internet of Everything. Wow. Deep. Now my question here on this is, why haven't we heard any of this from any mainstream sources? So that's why I find this stuff interesting, is because, mainstream news networks aren't covering anything about this revolution, about this industrial revolution. And that's what scares me, is because they're covering it up with all these C19 numbers. Legislation is the most effective incentive to introduce new digital solutions related to sustainability, safety, and security. Legislation effectively minimizes some of the resistance towards digitalization. So they come out with the laws, they update the laws, and then that once they update the laws and other people start understanding it, that's how it gets revolution. So referring back to another video where I talked all about the legislation where they're updating it for the MLETR DDoC standard. So check that out because this is, they're talking about the legislation that's coming in. Well, that's happening right now as we speak. Governments around the world are updating their legislation to accept these new innovative functions. 5G, Internet Future Innovation Platform for Logistics, that develops a 5G pilot test network in its Finland's largest universal port. Adoption to new technologies such as 5G to boost digitalization requires significant knowledge about the technology itself and a comprehensive insight on implementation practices. Benefits can be seen easily through technical measures such as data transaction speeds. So it goes from megabytes per second to gigabytes per second, which is huge. You could download like 1,000 movies in a minute. That's how fast it goes. So that's just insight from this paper. So I know that was long. I'm sorry for that being regulated and boring, but that's giving you an insight to what mainstream is not talking about. There's this innovation in this industrial revolution that's not being talked about. Okay, guys, so as I just said, the mainstream media isn't talking about this, but it's happening. And how do we know that it's happening? So me and one of my deep utility friends who also does these deep dives and he creates these awesome mind maps to show you the insight of the stuff we are coming up with and what we are finding. So this is a treat to you guys that we created. So if you're watching this, you are probably one of the few that gets to really piece this together. But so we know mainstream media is covering this up, but here's all the links. Scan these barcodes and it will bring you up to these companies and how they connect together. So the United Nations, the UN has the Commission on International Trade Laws. They created the MLETR standard, which I mentioned in this video and another standard before, which is Model Law and Electronic Transfer Records right here, MLETR. Finian Exchange, you got all these different companies that are building in this trade finance industry that are revolutionizing the standards. They're creating the new standards for a flawless system. As we have the ITFA, we know they're partnered with 3 Corda. Zinfin, XDC Network is partnered with the ITFA. So you can follow this out, spend some time and actually go and see some of the the TFD initiative is a huge initiative that you guys should know about for the XDC network. And this is how we're piecing it all together. You got the Digital Standards Initiative. We just put it together from the ICC. And that is a standard for digital documents for industrial automation to fix the system, the currently broken system. So have fun with this. And, if you do some research, do some hours of research, because either do it now or you're going to be wishing you did years from now, whenever it happens. But, there's something going on behind closed doors and the mainstream media is ignoring it. And this is our gift to you guys, is have our research and do what you want with it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this really deep dive. If you watched this all, I hope you got some information where you're like, wow, because, I spent a lot of hours researching the trade finance industry and how this is all working together. And it blows me away every day that I keep finding new pieces to the puzzle. It's an invisible puzzle we're solving here. And so if you guys haven't seen him on Twitter, follow him, XX_1133_1221_11. He's an anonymous deep researcher just like me, who's just literally putting out educational content for you guys to solve this invisible puzzle as well. What you do with this information, these are seeds. These are seeds, and if you choose to water it, it might lead to something. You might learn how to make money from these seeds. And if not, well, and the seed goes dies, well, that's okay. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed. And yeah, thanks, citizens of the future. Citizen of the future out. Catch you next time.